Welcome back to the pub and grab yourself a drink. Budweiser's today's drink, as it's the official beer of Major League Baseball, along with some peanuts. Like other consoles, the sheer quantity of sports, series, and titles on any given console will always trump any ongoing series that will appear on the platform. The PSP was no exception. The sport in question for today's topic alone has 12 different baseball games, and that's across two distinct series. The 2K variant of MLB and today's game series, The Show, specifically MLB 06, The Show. At first I thought it was a bit crazy seeing so many sports titles released on a handheld. However, when looking at this through the lens of what the PSP was meant to be, I can see sports titles actually thriving and being a potentially good source of income for developers. I had to take myself back to the mindset of 2006-ish. Growing up, I knew a lot of adults and quite a few people my age that weren't really into video games but would enjoy the occasional game of Madden or MLB. So the prospect of PS2 quality games but mobile could easily attract the casual video game enjoyer into purchasing Sony's handheld just to get the chance to pick up and play their sport of choice, put it down and pick it back up again at their own leisure without needing to commit to a full game at once nor be at home to do so. Truth be told, I probably could have just lumped each series into their own specific and respected video, and I might do that as like a Cliff Notes style video someday, but I wanted to do my due diligence and cover each game as standalone releases. What things got better, changed, stayed the same, etc. When they are all said and done, it'll be fun to look back on how much changed in the roughly 6-year time span all these sports titles are being released. Now right off the bat, I'm not the biggest sports person on the planet, and don't expect these to come out in rapid succession, but I imagine over time I'll do one or two of these here and there. So still, best not to digress any more than I need to. This is MLB 06, The Show.
MLB 06, The Show is on the air. This evening we come to you from the great state of Ohio. Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, the site for this edition of Major League Baseball. Interleague Baseball on tap here tonight, as it'll be the Kansas City Royals taking on the Cincinnati Reds. And hello again, everybody. Matt Vasgersian here to call balls and strikes. Alongside me are colleagues Dave Campbell and Rex Hudler. And Dave, we turn to you first. What should we keep an eye on in this matchup?
Well, I can tell you one guy that'll likely have an impact one way or the other, and that's Adam Dunn.
Upon booting up an exhibition match, I couldn't help but feel a bit nostalgic seeing the old 2006 Cincinnati Reds lineup. Like I mentioned, I'm not the biggest sports fan out there, but once upon a time I would go to Reds games with my dad, and truth be told, it's some of the best memories I have as a kid with my dad. My dad loved the Reds at the time, and it was always fun to go watch them play. My dad even hurt his hand catching a foul ball that I still have to this day. And I was there for the last game that was played at the Reds' previous stadium, and somewhere on the grounds of, I put in quotes here, their quote-unquote new stadium, there is a brick with my name on it. But I think the most nostalgic thing about choosing the Reds was seeing that they were one of the worst rated teams for the game.
And on the mound to face them will be the big left-hander Eric Milton. The wheels really came off the bus for Milton in 2005. Signed to be the ace of the Cincinnati staff, Milton labored through by far his worst year in the big leagues, finishing 8-15 with an ERA of 6.47, all while surrendering a major league high 40 gopher balls.
That's classic mid-2000s Reds for you. I digress, however. The game itself is pretty much overall what you would expect for a mid-2000s baseball game. Released on February 28, 2006 on both the PSP and PS2. This is the first of the MLB games to be released with the subtitle The Show on them, as it was an initiative by San Diego Studios, the developer behind the baseball series, as the developer changed from 989 Studios to San Diego Studios, and this would differentiate the titles from the previous series that strictly had the MLB brand on it. Plus, according to Wikipedia, MLB 06 The Show was the highest grossing in the series for handhelds, with a whopping 350,000 units sold for this game alone. This includes the later Vita releases, and the only other year to even come close to the 2006 edition of MLB The Show was the 2008 edition. Keep in mind, The Show is not affiliated at all with EA's MVP series, and up until the 2020s, The Show series was released exclusively on PlayStation consoles.
Left on. David Eckstein will step in now to lead things off in the home half of the first.
The batter, shortstop, David Eckstein.
MLB 06 The Show has the typical features you might expect, like an exhibition match, quick match, and season modes, but it goes the extra mile here with stuff like a home run derby, King of the Diamond, and next to season mode, probably what you'll end up playing the most, career mode. The presentation here is slick and nice with a lot of different effects on the menus, and the blue colors contrast well with the yellow selectors, making it easy to see what you're going to pick on screen. Everything functions as it should, and navigating between menus is easy to do so. I can't show you here, but the game does feature quite a few different licensed songs, and it's all stuff from the mid to late 2000s, so imagine what was popular at the time and you pretty much have the gist. I don't think I've ever listened to any of the groups featured here, but it all gives me a very sort of nostalgic feeling. Great selections, and I think it encapsulates the time period here very well. Overall, nothing to complain here about the menus and presentation, as it hits all the right spots. Booting up an exhibition game in MLB 06 The Show, you'll need to select whether you want to be home or road, which is the away team for this game. I imagine if you're watching this, you probably know how baseball works, so I'll spare the details, but give you a quick rundown. However, if you want me to have a more detailed explanation as to how baseball works, just let me know and I'll put it in the next game. The long and short of it, each team switches between batting and fielding. When you're batting, you're going to aim to hit the ball and cover as many bases as you can before getting back to the home plate to score a point. Fielders are attempting to get the batters out by either catching the ball after it's hit or tagging them out as they run the bases. One thing that is pretty interesting are the various control types for pitching and batting. Personally, I stuck with the default control type, so for pitching, you'll utilize a little meter here to determine power and stability of the pitch, similar to playing a golf game. You'll aim the ball ahead of time using the analog stick. However, this spot is where the ball initially begins traveling. It doesn't mean that's where it will end up. For batting, I went with rookie, which basically just means you have to time the hits, and depending on how well you time it, the better your hit will be. There are multiple other batting styles that can get pretty in-depth as to where and how deep you want to actually hit the ball. So I'd say regardless of what your play style or skill level is, the game compensates quite well in scaling for old and new players alike. I will mention there is a pitch prediction mechanic that sees you gaining the advantage over a pitcher if you guess the right pitch. However, the reverse is true if you guess the wrong one. Honestly, I didn't really play with this too much. I found myself almost always choosing the wrong answer, so I just kind of left it alone. But I imagine playing multiplayer, this would work better. As far as exhibitions go, it's pretty standard here. You'll take turns at bat, attempting to get the most points to win the game. Most of the stuff is pretty standard for the time, including swapping out players as well as looking at stats. You can check how tired your players are by pressing the select button and do swaps as necessary. Functionally, it's a very well put together baseball game. And I just want to go through the different modes that are on offer here real quick. Aside from exhibition mode, you have home run derby, which home run derby is pretty standard here. You'll compete against different players from other teams as you attempt to hit as many home runs as possible. You pick how many rounds you're going to go, and whoever has the most at the end is the winner. Very straightforward stuff here. Now next, I think out of all the modes, I had the most fun with King of the Diamond. And to pair it a bit from the IGN write-up back when this game was initially released, it's a sort of minigame mode where you'll choose one of two sides and two players from any specific team. One will pitch and another will bat, and both sides will take turns pitching and hitting. Each inning is timed, and after the time limit, you'll switch sides. Once all the innings are over, the team with the most runs will win. It's almost like a reskin of Home Run Derby, however, this plays almost like a light or casino version of a typical baseball game. What's interesting here is bases will get lined up as long as the hit was considered successful. So even if you don't get a home run right away, you can load up the bases and slowly get more and more points accumulated as each of the innings persist. It's like a typical baseball game, but cutting out the need for infielders and trimming a lot of the fat when it comes to a typical baseball game. I said casino earlier because if you've ever been to a casino, you'll undoubtedly find a slot machine that's full of bright, vibrant colors like this that is a pseudo baseball game. In terms of its function and aesthetics, visually it's definitely the most appealing in the game in my opinion. And once I figured out what was going on, I really enjoyed it. In season mode, you'll pick a baseball team and simulate playing multiple seasons. You'll have control of your roster through the player management menu, where you can tweak the rosters, see lists of injured players, trade players, and see who are all free agents. In the Around the League mode, you can check team rankings and your current standings in the league as you progress in the season. All in all, it's pretty standard to what you would find in a season mode in general. Next to King of the Diamond mode and season mode, career mode is where you'll likely spend most of your time, especially if you're into the whole starting from the bottom and working your way up style of gameplay. Career mode sees you creating a character and slowly building them up to be the starting player on whatever team you choose. Truth be told, this is pretty much like season mode, however, its focus is put on your created character. There isn't a story mode, however, or rather, its story-like elements function the same as season mode. I do think for the time, this character creator was okay. It's got quite a bit in terms of customization, and while it's not going to be Baldur's Gate 3 by any means, for what it is, it works.
Nomar Garcia-Parra will dig in again. He singled home a run his last time.
The batter, first baseman, Nomar Garcia-Parra.
Now a swing, and there's a ball hit high in the air, deep to straightaway center field. And that ball is out of here.
Well, this could be adding insult to injury right now as he clobbers this thing, and that'll give him even more of a cushion for the bottom of inning number 9.
If you were to have picked this back up back in the mid-2000s, there were a few options you'd have available for online. There was the ad hoc, infrastructure, and news-to-go offline reader. Ad hoc is pretty self-explanatory, as it's your typical linked match where you and your friend connect PSPs via the wireless ad hoc. Pick a team and face off against one another. Infrastructure mode here is pretty interesting, though, at least in terms of what its description is, as Sports Connect is no longer available, and that's what you needed to connect to in order to play through infrastructure mode. However, at the time, you would have been able to connect to the internet to play against other people, and there were online leaderboards. So considering how well this game sold, I imagine competition was fierce for the top spot back in the day. Finally, news-to-go offline reader, which is not available anymore, but it would be continuously updated with sports stories that you'd be able to download and read offline at your own convenience. A cool feature that just goes to show the PSP was pretty ahead of its time with its online capabilities, and it would have been great if you were a fan to keep up with all the latest MLB news without having to go on your PC to look it up. On Metacritic, MLB 06 The Show received an 83 critically, while its user score is sitting at 5.8, which I think is a bit low. Personally, I gave it a 6 because I feel it's slightly above average. Truth be told, it's probably closer to like a 7, but I'm not the biggest sports person. However, I would say if you are, a 7 would be right about where this one would land. I do think if you accept the time frame on which this was released, you could have some fun with it. Now, this is the first of many more baseball games to go, so I'm curious if they get better from here or not. Now, this wasn't the first baseball game released, as that honor went to MVP Baseball 2005 from EA, and that was a launch title for the system, so we'll check out that one soon enough. Still, what are your thoughts? Do you have any nostalgia for baseball around this time period? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you for stopping by the PS Pub.